Okay, so I guess I'm doing this 2 days in a row now. I'm on my way home from work, last day on shift. It's a pretty busy day, not because it was busy, but because I made enough work to do all day. And something that I noticed when I'm working is, like, all day I can come up with, a million things to talk about, a million things to say while I'm doing things, while I'm busy. And I never have time to write them down or make a voice memo or any of that stuff, so that it's something that I can actually work on later. Not that I have time to work on things, but I have ideas. And I go through a series of thoughts about those ideas. Sometimes I can come up with entire blog posts while I'm doing my job. And for some reason, they all disappear as soon as I have any chance to record something or write it down. I mean, not that I have a lot of chances to write things down. I was testing out this speech-to-text app on my phone here, and the speech-to-text on the notes sucks, and the speech-to-text on the voice memo thing only can store 5 minutes worth of audio. Well, sometimes I can ramble on for fucking an hour. The one day I was listening to the audiobook, Dog Whistle Politics, and they were talking about the 3 types of racism. Overt or extreme racism, the kind that everybody sees and believes in. The white nationalist, the KKK member, that kind of racist. And then structural racism, which is like the systems of power that hold people of color back and basically apply all to white privilege. This is what causes white privilege, is this systemic or structural racism. And then there's the implicit bias type of racism, which is kind of like the idea that we all have a little bit of, like, socialized attitudes towards different groups and types of people that we don't really always recognize, and sometimes it comes out in ways that we don't want it to. And so I was listening to the audiobook, and every once in a while I would pause the audiobook and I'd go into voice memos and I'd do 5 minutes of talking about the different types of racism and the different ways they manifest themselves, the different ways that people deny them, and the different ways, like, and I think ultimately there was a 4th kind of racism too that they brought up in the book, but I can't really recall it right now. But my point is, I have these ideas in my head, and I was listening to this audiobook, and I did 5 minutes on each of these different types of racism in the voice memo, and then, I do nothing with it. There's nothing I can do with it. It's just rambling, incoherent nonsense, much like this. But I guess whatever. It's one of those things that it's just a weird phenomenon, I think, is that you can sometimes have really deep thoughts while you're physically working and completely unable to do anything with those thoughts. You can't verify their veracity. You can't check them out to see if they're working. You can't compare them against real world evidence. It's all in your head. I know that a lot of people have talked about having, entire conversations while they're with themselves while they're working. Like they're speaking and having an argument or whatever, and they'll play out both sides of the argument, but they'll do that in their head while they're working. They might not know what the other person would ever say, but they only know what they imagine the other person would say, which might be on occasion a good guess, if you have a good knowledge of the other person and you're well versed in the arguments or what have you. But it doesn't mean for sure that every time you go and have that argument, that's what's going to be said. I know plenty of people who surprise you. If you think they're going to say one thing, and they don't. It's often quite surprising because you're not expecting it, I guess, because it defies what you think you know about them. I find this actually quite a bit with my coworkers and well, even my dad at times. Sometimes you think of conservatives or right-leaning people as very, resistant to change and pro business and like that the stereotype of the Republican. Everybody knows kind of what it is, but a lot of the people I know who are conservative are actually kind of anti-corporate. They see the world as it is in a lot of ways, and they're resigned to it almost. Like they feel like there's no other way except to complain about CEOs who are giving themselves $1 million bonuses while employees are being laid off. They complain about that, but they don't take it to that next step where one might analyze the structures underneath it. But often I still get stuck thinking of them in certain terms, in certain ways, and then when they say something that's really against what like Republican politicians or conservative politicians would say, they surprise me. Conservative voters often are anti-corporate, and I mean, it makes sense to me that everybody should be anti-corporation. Like these big companies that fucking own everything, and they charge you whatever they want. Call it market forces, whatever, supply and demand. I mean, there's probably some of that in there, but ultimately they'd want to decide how much profit they make so that they can pay dividends to investors or what have you, but it's still pretty arbitrary in a lot of ways. Like, it's not like the widget is 51 cents to make or 50 cents to make and they're charging 51 cents, right? They want to make, they want to charge fucking $10 for the fucking widget that costs 50 cents to make. And that's a thing that a lot of people realize too, is that like, they look at stuff like that and they go, well, what the fuck am I paying $300 for this thing that's probably only worth $50? If you added up all the materials and manufacturing costs and even part of the labor, probably. Even part of the labor is into, the cost of one unit of $50 whatever. Say it's a lunch kit or fucking not a lunch kit. They're not $300. But something I was talking with my coworker about was $300. Some filter he had to get for his vehicle or something. It's $300, and he's sure there's $30 worth of materials in there. So if you say $30 worth of material, manufacturing takes power and labor. There's probably no labor. It's all probably fucking automated anyway, built by robots. But he's thinking like, okay, so it's $30 worth of material. You add up all the other costs. Even if you get to $100 per unit of production cost, why is he paying $300? Like it even baffles conservative people. So, maybe there's ways to get to people to convince them that the current system requires analysis and requires change. I don't know. As usual, I'm just rambling incoherently. Just thinking out loud, I guess. It just surprises me. I guess it depends on where one's being influenced too. Like, I know people who, normally they're kind of pro-pot, pro-marijuana use, but they listen to AM radio. And so, knowing that pot was going to be legal soon, and it wasn't a big deal to most people. It's not a big deal if you smoke it. It's not a big deal if you grow it. Nobody gives a shit, except it's against the law still. And for some reason, these same people who are on board with it not being a big deal, also get pissed off because you're breaking the law. Well, but in 3 months it was going to be, or 6 months it was going to be legal again anyway. So it blows me away in a lot of ways how people can be, upset about these things. I don't understand them. You're upset about the CEO getting his $1 million bonus while laying off workers, but you're not upset about the fact that your wages are arbitrary and that you're not really paid based on what you produce, but based on some number that fits within the corporate scheme. It seems like they've got the right outrage in certain places and the wrong outrage in others. We talk about this a lot on Facebook and whatnot with people, like the idea that somehow immigrants, people who are coming to Canada or the United States to work or have a different life or flee danger, get a lot of, they're vilified and they're turned into the bad guy, while these companies are shipping jobs to third world countries anyway. And it's not the people, it's not the workers who are the problem. It's the capitalists, it's the people at the top. And it just makes you wonder, like, how are you missing that level of analysis that's going like, okay, so we need to do something about this. We need to change the system so that we're not, and stop blaming immigrants. I don't know. There's zero train of thought with this rambling mess. I guess whatever. What's that thing that people do at the end of their stuff? They say, "Hey, thanks for listening. Hit that subscribe button or whatever, and the notification bell. This is what all the YouTubers I watch do. I'm going to try and do this regularly. I mean, I'm a rambling, incoherent mess, but it's got to be better than some people. Maybe not. Gives me something to do on the ride home anyway. I'm off work tomorrow. So, when I'm off work, I can't be sure I'll actually do this. Like, obviously I wouldn't even do it in the car, but I might do it at home if I get around to it. Maybe. See if I got something to say tomorrow. I'm hoping to go to the gym. I did not go to the gym today because somehow I slept in. I guess after you work 7 days, it's a little hard to get up after your alarm. What are these vlog things supposed to be anyway? Is this supposed to be like a video diary? Is this supposed to be just my thoughts on the way home? Or is this supposed to be, do I detail my day to you? Because that would be boring as fuck, wouldn't it? My day's boring. I work. I try to do some reading. I try to work on my podcast a little bit. When days off, it's a little bit better. And it'll be nice when everybody's off for the holidays. That's the nice thing about having a partner who's a teacher too, is that, like, she gets done and then at the same time as the kids are done. So then she's got 2 weeks off during the Christmas holidays, and we can actually spend a week together. It's nice. You don't care. Why should you? You got your own lives. You probably haven't watched this far, and I don't blame you. But yeah, anyway, call to action, right? That's the thing that everybody does. They say subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you want to, support me on Patreon, but not because of this. Support my podcast because it's good. We do good work, and I got a great crew and a great audio guy, and all of this stuff that we do, it does, hosting and website fees do cost money. And but the podcast is where it's at. That's what we do. That's quality content. I guess, and make sure to subscribe to that or share it. You know what they say? I'm rambling on. I keep going after I'm supposed to be ending this, but they say that on holidays like this, you're supposed to go to your relatives' houses and get them to download a podcast app, like Beyond Pod or Apple Podcasts on an iPhone, or Stitcher, or the Spreaker app, or whatever. You get that, you download that onto your relative's portable device, and you basically subscribe them to some podcasts that you think they might enjoy. So if you want to do that, subscribe your relative to Brainstorm. That would be super cool. And let me know that you did it, because I want to thank people when they do stuff like that. I will definitely be thanking you. Let's say next time I do a vlog, or during one of the podcast episodes, or whatever, I will definitely be saying thank you if you do that. So, okay, I think I've talked for way too fucking long. I'm coming up on my turn. Have a good one, folks, and I guess thanks for watching.